Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Weekday with Mike and Andy. It is so good to have you along with us again for episode 6 of the Weekday.
Episode 6.
Yeah, I'm going to steal Spencer's line. He basically said, I can't believe we did another one. So that's where we're at.
I can't believe they let us do another one.
Yeah, basically, I can't believe they let us do another one of these. So this is episode 6. Thanks so much for joining us, whether you're on YouTube or on Spotify or on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Podcasts, however you're joining on Facebook. There's like a zillion different ways that you can interact with the Weekday. And listen, we want you to really interact with us. We want to hear from you. We're going to be kind of talking about some things. We've been talking about a couple of things over the last couple of weeks, some heavy, some lighter. And we just really want to hear from you. We really want to hear how this is kind of living with you and how all of these things are living with you. In particular, as of the time of this recording, our schools here in the Tampa Bay area, Pasco County. So you have no idea. If you are on the West Coast, we feel really bad for you that your schools are closed still. Stay safe, please. We know there's some fires out there too. Yeah. But our schools are opening back up, albeit with a couple of restrictions. Mike, you have a 6-year-old who went back to first grade, right?
Yep.
Went to first grade. He didn't go back.
Yeah, right.
How'd that go?
I think pretty well. It was a very strange feeling. And I texted you yesterday morning, you and our sister Melissa, and it was so strange.
Yeah.
And we have wanted him to go back to school. And Caleb, our oldest, he's 6 years old, and he is such a social butterfly. He needs that social interaction. Incredibly intelligent, incredibly athletic, but man, he needs to be around people. And more than that, he probably needs to be, not necessarily needs to be away from my wife, who is at home with them all day, but he needs to be involved in something. This is the moment that happens.
Let's take a time out and just say thank you to all of the stay-at-home parents or the parents that are actually homeschooling their kids in this time.
For
because Mike and I couldn't do it. We ourselves would jump through a plate glass window if we had to.
The respect for my wife, as if it wasn't already high enough.
Yeah.
I mean, our wives are superheroes.
Yeah.
It is incredible. But it was very strange, Sunday night especially, you just get this, it's a sense of dread. It's a sense of, man, what in the world is going to happen? And I don't think anybody really knows what is going to happen, because we're finally at a point where I think, at least in Pasco County, in Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, the Tri-County area around Tampa is finally at a point where the numbers are stable. The numbers are getting lower and lower. And so it's kind of all right, this feels good. I don't feel as scared to walk out the door as I used to, where everyone's got the masks now. There's way more hand sanitizer everywhere. Toilet paper is back in stock.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah, that feels great.
Banner day.
And so, normally though, when your kids go back to school, I know that when I was going back to school as a kid, it was a little, you get kind of a little nervous, a little anxious kind of thing, but mostly excited.
Exciting, yeah.
Yeah. And that's not how I really felt. I was tiny bit excited, but more just I really hope this is the right thing that we're doing. And, I can't imagine for you, it's 3 kids, all across, the age spectrum. So how is it for you guys?
Yeah, it was, so for those that don't know my family, we have a 16-year-old boy, a 14-year-old girl, and a 10-year-old boy. Again, as of August 2020, when we're recording this, the 16-year-old and the 14-year-old are both in the same school, which is totally cool. Same high school, and then our 10-year-old. So the 10-year-old,
one class. Hold on, we have to.
Okay.
No. Here, we can get to that in a second. We can get to that second.
We'll get. I'm going to talk about the 10-year-old first, because Carter, our youngest. So whereas he had kind of the same thing of, it was a little weird. But we had a couple of long talks with all 3 of our children last night, particularly about some things that we'll talk about in a second. And we brought Carter in at the very last. And Carter, Carter marches to the beat of his own drum all the time. Always has.
He's a thinker.
He's incredibly intelligent. He's just his own dude. He doesn't
for better and for worse.
Yeah, he doesn't care anything. He's the type of dude that is just gonna be just in his own world. He plays his own imaginary games. Anyway, he's the best. All three of them are the best, but Carter just has this thing. And so we sat him down and said, hey, bud, how was school? Very solemn, hushed tones. And, how was school? And he's like, it was great. And I said, well, and we were completely taken aback. It was great. What do you mean? I got to sit with Julian on the bus, which is totally awesome. I got to see all my friends again, which was great.
Yeah.
And I said, bud, you had to wear a mask all day, right? Yep. Well, wasn't it hot? I mean, it got a little uncomfortable, but they let us go outside. Yeah. So, how could it not be cool?
Yeah, well, and so Carter and Caleb, they go to the same school. They're both in the same elementary school. And it was literally the same exact thing with Caleb. He's like, dude, how was it, Oh, it was awesome. I said, what did you do? He said, well, we had lunch.
Yeah.
Like, great. Yeah. And then we went to recess. Anything else you want to tell me about school?
Did you learn anything?
No, nothing.
Books?
I mean, it was trying to pull out. I mean, it's like he's just locked up. But honestly, I think he was that's what I mean. He was so excited to be back around his people.
Yeah.
And so continue on with the story.
So
though,
the other two children.
Yeah.
So my wife listens to this. Sometimes my children listen to this. And so forgive me for telling this story, but that's what we do. So Grace and Austin are in the same school. Austin's a junior and Grace is a freshman. And freshmen, I don't envy people having to walk into high school at any point as a freshman, let alone in COVID times. It's a huge life change. You go from top of the class, everything is great, 8th grade, to all of a sudden you are the worst in the school. You don't know where class is. She had an awful day. Grace,
just the difference between 14 and 18 is such a giant gap.
Yeah.
It's only 4 years.
But that's 4 years of life. Mm-hmm. That's 4 years of jobs and cars. And, you think about what happens in high school. There are two major life changes that most people have. You have sometimes your first dance or something, but your driver's license and the ability to vote.
Yeah.
That happens in high school for a lot of people. And so I don't envy that. Anyway, Grace, I got home from work yesterday and I started cooking dinner because my wife was working late. And Grace was home. Austin, the 16-year-old, had cross-country practice, and so he wasn't home. And Grace came downstairs and said, Grace, how was school? I mean, it was fine. I said, yeah, so, what happened? And, well, first period was just bad, and it was this. And then second period, it was on the complete opposite side, and I went to the wrong building. And so I was late, and I don't like being late. I said, well, Grace, it's the first day of school.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't like being late, and somebody told me the wrong place, and then it wasn't. And then I had third period, and that was homeroom, so that was short anyway. Then we had lunch, and then she went off about lunch, how they had to split up and all this. Anyway, then fourth period, I think it's fourth period, she has with her brother. They're doing some sort of math class together.
Which is this is the best thing in the world. So, I absolutely love this.
So Austin, he's AP classes, super smart. Grace, she's already way advanced in 9th grade. They're both they're
super smart.
They're both just excelling beyond. So, but they, for some reason, they have a math class together. And in COVID times, they don't allow you to change desks or anything. So they just alphabetize you. I don't tell you that part.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they have to sit next to each other because their last name is the same. One's Austin and one's Grace. So,
oh my gosh.
So anyway, Grace, I'm talking to her, and she said, yeah, my brother, I had to sit next to Austin. Oh, well, how's that? Well, he didn't talk to me at all. And I was like, well, I mean, that kind of stinks. He didn't say a word. I mean, he said something at the end of class, but that was it. And then I guess they left. And so the other part of that story that actually comes out that I didn't tell you either was that my wife, Jenna, had been texting Austin right before that and said, hey, bud, your sister's having a kind of a bad day, kind of a rough train. Could you just encourage her and you sit next to her or in the next class or whatever? Yeah. And Austin's like, yeah, cool. I'll be helping her out, all these other things. Didn't say a word to her in class until the very end. And so it's like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And so we pulled Grace into our bedroom at later that night to talk to her and encourage her and just say, hey, Grace, you're strong. She's been through a divorce. She was she hasn't been through a divorce. She's been through her biological parents' divorce and all this other stuff. And she's super strong and she's one of the best people on earth. And so I just was trying to encourage her, yada, yada, yada. So we pulled Austin into the room.
Yeah.
And Jenna was upset at him.
Sure.
And I said, bud, and when mom's upset, I'm upset.
Absolutely.
And so I said, Bud, you big timed your sister. And he said, what do you mean? And it's like, we talked to her and she said that you didn't ever speak to her. And he said, well, she didn't want me to talk to her. She told me last week that she didn't want me to talk to her. And so at the end of class, I just said, how was class? It was like, and both Jenna and I at that point, like, took a breath, and I think we calmed down. And like, obviously the stress of first day and the stress of all that, but like, oh, Grace, so Grace, I love you. Whenever you're watching this, if you are watching this, I hope you had a better day today.
Yeah, right.
I just got a text from one of them, so I think it's completely okay.
I just, as a guy, a brother who, it's unfortunate. You and I never got to really be in the same school together.
No, ever.
Maybe when I was in first grade, I think you were in fifth grade.
Yeah, but who?
But we never interacted at all.
Right.
I mean, because the difference between first and fifth grade is insane. But when I was in middle school, you were in high school.
Right.
When I got into high school, you graduated high school. So you and I never were able to share any sort of real school experience together. However, our sister, Melissa, who is only 20 months removed from me, we have spent several hours of several classes together. And I know exactly what Austin feels like. It's like, I just don't know. What do you want from me? It's like the meme from The Notebook.
Yes, exactly.
What do you want? What do you want?
You're a bird, I'm a bird.
Yeah. And so I understand Grace's perspective for sure. And yeah, Austin probably should have said something, but like that gets me deep down and makes me laugh very hard. So
it's been, again, the stress of reopening. Better.
They love each other. I mean, your 3 kids are amazing. They are incredible people, and like they will figure it out.
They'll be fine.
But I mean, it's a lot of change for Grace right up front. Yeah. And for Austin, he's just kind of hanging, and
there's no change. Yeah, Austin, hey bud, how was school? It was awesome. Yeah. He got to drive to school for the first time. He's got his car. He drove to school. He was at cross country. That's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's the reason we're kind of talking about all this reopening stuff is because we here at Bay Hope are actually going to be going through a bit of a reopening as well. Regathering, I'm sorry, because the church never closed, which is 100% true. Yeah. Bay Hope, we've talked about this on previous podcasts, but Bay Hope Church has been just absolutely crushing it. Yeah. So thank you all for joining in on this weird, crazy COVID journey. And we kind of want to know, if you have kids in schools, like, how did that go for you on the first day? We just want to hear about the first day. The rest of it, it'll shake out and it'll be what it's going to be. But that first day, I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
But we're regathering as a church, and we were supposed to regather
July 12th.
July 12th, which seems like a year ago.
It's insane. It's not even 2 months ago.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes, but think about how much has happened in those less than 2 months.
Right.
And the amount of decisions we've had to make and all this other stuff. And so every single Sunday service that we've done here has seemed like the Super Bowl for that one particular Sunday, because we didn't know if we were reopening or not reopening. And so all these other things. And so our executive team said, hey, we're going to go forward with September 13th. And September 13th, 2020, Bay Hope Church is going to open its doors again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, as the digital guy, I feel a bit of fear and trepidation about that.
Why?
Because a number of reasons. Number one, I don't want the digital space to just fade into obscurity, which it's not going to.
Yeah.
That's a personal pride thing that I need to get over. But
sure.
But just like we were talking about schools, like I don't want there to be a shutdown again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want us to open the doors and then 2 weeks later have to shut down.
Sure.
Like we're seeing with other places and other schools and other churches in the area in particular.
Right.
So as the worship director, like, how are you feeling about reopening and regathering? Not reopening, regathering.
Right. I think, it's a very complex and loaded question.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. Let's talk it out. I think it's a good thing. I do. I think that for a worship leader and who's been doing this, and you know this, you've been a worship leader at plenty of churches and doing this just as long as I have. There's something super special about being able to do that together and being able to vibe, off the energy in the room. And really, like, the gathered church is the most powerful movement in the world, in the history. It is the most powerful thing.
Sure.
I think what's happening is I'm not upset at all that we are regathering. I just thought that when schools would reopen and when the church would regather again, all of this stuff would be over. And that's such a hard pill to swallow. It really is.
Well, it looks like everything being over is
years.
Every day that there's not a sense of quote unquote normalcy, it feels like we push back all of this stuff by a couple of months.
Right. So I'm trying to sort through that, because I remember, for those of you that joined us on Easter, we did this really cool special song. And it was where, we asked everybody on our worship team, because we weren't allowed to have any of our volunteers like actually on campus, because this was back in April. And we asked all of them to send in videos of them playing and singing the song, and we cut it, we put it together, we put it on the big screen behind us. And
if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll actually link it in the description.
Sure, yeah, well,
it
was so cool. And I remember when we put it all together, I just had tears, and even when we did it for Easter, because we had to do it a couple times when we recorded Easter, I just got this feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't wait until everybody gets to be back. Not just because we're going to have everybody back, because this is going to be over. And that's not the way things are going to be. And so, I do think that we as a culture, we as a church, as, whatever, have adapted like fairly well.
Sure.
Especially, given that numbers are going down, and I do think people are respecting the transmission of the virus. They're respecting what this can possibly do to people, and we should be, a lot more cautious and all that kind of stuff. I just wish we weren't having to deal with it, And so again, as much as I really want church to regather, because I do, I think that that's a super important part. I just wish it was over. And, it's starting, as we pull back the curtain a little bit, as we like to do on this podcast, it really does kind of, to your point of like, what is digital campus? What does the digital side of Bay Hope Church look like? We really do have to start asking questions and understanding, is it just going to be streaming what happens at Lakeshore? And as we grow in campuses, is that the
Spoiler, no.
Well, but that's the conversation that we need to start having. And that this is, again, as we talked about a couple weeks, is sort of forcing our hand into having more and more and more as to what does church look like? What does the church experience look like? And again, normal is dead. Like whatever we thought was normal is no longer going to be normal anymore. Yeah. And so, there is a lot of, on top of there being, a lot of the health suggestions and the concerns, and it's really like everything that we have known and have done for such a long time is not going to be that way anymore.
Yeah. And when you are first listening to this, we'll be having more details. If you are interested in joining us physically on one of our campuses, whether Lakeshore or West Chase, the Harbor, our college ministry or our college campus is a little further off.
It's a little different just because they meet at USF.
Well, and USF has their own set of rules and regulations. And
they're still going to meet digitally.
Yeah, they'll still meet digitally and all that. But yeah, the physical. So anyway, you'll be seeing more information on how we're regathering and sort of the steps we're taking. Our sister, Melissa, is kind of heading up all of that. And if there's one thing about Melissa that you need to know, she is very particular and she is very organized. And so everything is going to be to a T.
Yeah.
Perfect, like letter of the law, amazing, going to be great. It's going to be safe. It's going to be all those other things. But I think you said it there, like what does that mean for the rest of everything? Is we're finding and we're reading all of these studies from churches that have opened around the country that 20 to 30% of their congregation are coming back.
Right.
20 to 30%.
Right. Or just are showing up physically.
Yeah.
Not necessarily coming back or experiencing church, but those that are walking through the doors physically, it's about 20 to 30%.
Right. And so how do we as church leaders, how do we brace ourselves for that, number one?
Right.
And number two, how do we then minister to the 70 to 80% that are not with us still? And Pastor Matthew loves to use this term phygital, which makes me feel a little weird inside.
It's very strange.
It's very strange. and yet that's what we are. Phygital is the combination of the physical and the digital. And we need to continue to take steps down that, which again, Bay Hope TV, which you're going to be seeing a lot more of, podcast world and everything that happens throughout the week is going to be helping to augment that. But at the end of the day, the church is the gathered body of believers. And so how do we gather people in an online capacity and still call it church and still make sure that Jesus is known in all of that? And that's where our hearts lie. Yeah. That's where this church's heart lies. Right. I mean, that's our mission to connect people to to that life-changing relationship with Jesus. And so how do we do that while staying safe or digital or all those other things? Anyway, we're not going to pontificate on that any longer because like it's just such a hard.
It's a big debate. And you know what I think is really cool though is that most people, especially, when you're thinking about church, you're thinking about, what does it look like on Sundays? And a lot of us, that's what we have known growing up and all that kind of stuff. But what we're not even stopping to realize is that pretty much everything else in life, including school now, is embracing this phygital mindset, or this phygital reality where even Amazon, we were talking about just yesterday, even Amazon, who started out solely digital, is now, moving into the physical space, whether it's through Whole Foods or whether it's through Amazon Go stores or whatever. So they're even testing out, like, just the companies obviously going from physical to digital. That makes sense.
Right.
But companies that are strictly digital now going physical, because there's something special about the both and.
Yeah.
And it's about unlocking that experience. It's about unlocking that concept that I don't think churches have fully grasped yet.
Yeah.
And we're right on the cusp of really, breaking through on something. Just who knows what it is.
Yeah.
But it's a really fun place to start to think and to start to ideate, different methods and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And as we kind of get ready to wrap up today, like I said, we want to thank you for joining us here. And we do want to hear from you, particularly on the whole church reopening and schools reopening and stuff. How are you feeling in the midst of that?
Yeah.
How can we honestly be helping in that too? Because part of our job as the church is to help, to really aid you in your journey with Jesus, but also your journey with your family and your friends and your schools and your workplaces. How can we as a church help you in that? We would love to hear from you. You can email us at theweekday@bayhope.com. You can hit us up on our personal socials or at Bayhope Church on every other social platform. One of us or one of our creative team will be able to get to you and funnel everything into the right channel. Everything goes where it's supposed to go, which is totally great at a church like this. But hey, thank you so much for joining us on episode 6 of The Weekday. We will see you next time. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Bayhope TV. Be sure to like and share these videos with your friends, as it really does help this channel out. And be sure to subscribe for more Bayhope TV content. As always, thanks for watching.